This time last year, the 37th America's Cup had almost been won. At that point, we suspected that the Kiwis would make another successful defence and that the British would throw everything they could at it. But we also thought that in the end, the chances were that the America's Cup was going to remain in the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron. And by the 19th of October last year, we knew. That's exactly how it panned out. But as the champagne corks popped and the parties began, what we didn't know was that this was to be the beginning of a massive change for the Cup. Some might say the biggest in modern Cup history. Because 12 months later, a deal has now been signed that changes fundamentally how the America's Cup will be run. It does what many had believed for decades was impossible. And not everybody's going to like it. But first, what is this partnership agreement? Here's a clip from the explanation that we ran a few weeks ago.
We just signed the protocol for America's Cup 38 between Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron and the Royal Yacht Squadron, and it's a pretty seismic shift for the America's Cup in that we've created a partnership that will give continuity to the event for the first time in its history, and it's been a long time coming, but it's something that we're hugely excited about.
Effectively what we've done is we've given the ownership to the running, not of the Cup, but of the ownership of the running of the America's Cup to the teams, so that no one can be disadvantaged. Everybody's on the same level, and the best team will ultimately still win. One of the problems of the America's Cup is this Achilles heel that every 2 or 3 years you got to start again. And really in sport that's unprecedented. Now you can argue that's a good thing, but it's not conducive to growth of the America's Cup, the pinnacle of our sport.
The trouble is that even with a binding document for AC38, delivering the long-term goals is going to be very difficult to do. You can be sure that there'll be plenty of fierce opponents to this idea, and they're not going to hold back. They're going to say that the Cup as we know it has been destroyed, that 174 years of development and history has been scrubbed in favour of commercialising a Cup that was specifically set up so that it could never be owned. They'll say that it's akin to selling the crown jewels of sailing, and that it's now just another Sailing World Championships. And then, if they think they're not being heard, they'll probably get quite bitchy. Grant Dalton and Ben Ainslie will be no strangers to these views. Even within the inner circles of the current Cup cycle, there have been plenty of disagreements and problems to overcome. Which is why it was good to be offered the opportunity to talk to them directly about the new America's Cup partnership and how they see it working from here into the future. But right now it's getting pretty real pretty quickly, as the close for entries for the 38th America's Cup is on October the 31st, 2025. Yes, just under 2 weeks' time. So this seemed to be a good place to start. Who's in? Before we get into the ACP and everything else, who's in? What teams have signed up to this? Who's up for it?
It's only just really started because they're holding to see whether this happened. Really, we have an America's Cup at the moment. I mean, it's not a riddle. I'm not trying to miss the question, but I'm always hesitant to announce those that are in when it's actually up to them to announce those that are in. But we have an America's Cup. We have a protocol in place as in protocol active as of 36 hours ago, and we have an America's Cup and we have boats for an America's Cup. But as I say, I'm not trying to evade the question, but it's not really up to me to say who those are. It's up to them.
Understood. But a follow-on question from that then. Clearly the deadline to enter is pretty tight, 31st of October. But
everybody knew that. Fallover date, I think, is the end of January. It's not kind of that time critical as normal because you don't have to build a new boat, and so you're modifying your existing boat, foil, sails, mast, aero package, stuff like that. But you're not quite as time critical. But we start racing next May.
Why was the change necessary?
Well, the thing's been around for 174 years, so you could argue, was this the right move? Because if it ain't broke, don't try and fix it. So I think it's the other way around. And certainly as the defender, we've agonized with that decision. But it seems like it was due, that it's time. Franchise sports teams are growing in value all over the world. There is investment available for sports franchise. We're seeing that around. And I think to guarantee longevity, not be so reliant on this boom bust cycle or not reliant on it at all. I'm going to give you an example. We would dearly have loved to be able to negotiate with Naples for 2 cycles, say. But because of the way that, and because they're spending so much on infrastructure, right? I think their infrastructure bill is 180 million euros. So and that's never been able to be done. And when you sort of follow that kind of on, it means you can't do long broadcast deals, you can't do long sponsor deals, you can't. I mean, we all know the Achilles heel of the cup. And so I think in this commercial world, and we all know that our sport's niche, it was time to make that move. And along with the challenge of record, with the support of the New York Yacht Club, we've been able to make that move. But it's not been an easy move because there's a lot of stakeholders to be satisfied, not the least of them being us as the defender, and the yacht clubs themselves, because they're the trustee. Whoever wins it is still the trustee. That doesn't change. So there's been a lot of considerations. I think we were printing out the full document yesterday. I think it was I think we got to 400 pages of legal document. So it's a significant document to make this work. You won't be able to convince me that we're right yet. I think time will only tell that. But we had to make a call. There's been a lot of call for it for a long time, as you know. I mean, we were against it in 17. We're the ones that tipped it over, although this is quite different in so much as this is a MBA type team, not ownership, but a controlled event. And I contrast that with other events like SailGP, which is essentially controlled by 2 people, effectively. So it's quite different in that respect. In the end, it's a call. We made a call, and we'll find out whether we're right.
What happens when someone comes along at some stage in the future and wins the cup and says, "Yeah, I don't want to do all of that. I'm going to take it back to what I wanted it to be, and I'm just going to return it all, and we're going to go back to how we were." Or, and the second question, because it's slightly tied in with this, is what happens if a team and a club fall out, and the team then hooks up with another club, and the club doesn't want to buy into those? Do they have to buy into the deal that's already been done by?
So they're all good questions, and they're kind of the obvious questions. So it's fully deed compliant. It requires each partner to select a challenger of record prior to the commencement of racing. And the protocol will be agreed also before the competition commences, and that's approved by the board. So you have this perpetual rollover because of that. Each time it's agreed before, it rolls. Each time it's agreed before. To answer your specific question about what if someone just doesn't like the idea, well, they won't be in the partnership in the first place. And there is quite significant guardrails, and this comes to the investability question around default of a partner, because you can't just have someone fly off. Oh, screw it! I don't want to do that. I'm out of here. Who's part of that, because they would upset the equilibrium of all the other teams. So, if they do that, there will be, and I mean significant, and this has been a huge point of debate, has been agreed, significant penalties for, I'm going to say, disrupting the partnership. Ben?
Obviously a big moment for the Cup, and like Grant says, being able to really develop this partnership and have people that want to invest in the Cup for the long term, we think is a real, well, we don't think it is. It's a real game changer for the event.
Just to finish off your last question, Matt, which was a club and a team falling out and then disrupting in that way. The team and the club must have a perpetual document of understanding to continue each time. And the club is also tied into the partnership as well.
What have you had to do to achieve this?
Ultimately, what the challenge has been, it's been about trying to convince stakeholders that this is the right move for the cup. And initially, I think quite a lot of resistance because of, for many different reasons. But the more and as we know, it's taken a long time. It's taken 12 months to get to this point. But actually, the more we've got through this, as hard as it's been, actually, the conviction, again, credit to Grant, that this is what we should be doing, I think has grown. And so ultimately, that's what has delivered at the end of the day.
Yeah, I to what we've given away, I'd phrase it a different way around. If we hadn't done this, and that comes back to that question, one of the original questions, this could have been pretty much the end of the cup. So we haven't given, in that respect, we haven't given anything away. We've actually created an environment with the cup to thrive forward. So, if you took a altruistic view of it, we've given everything away. We've given away all those advantages, but maybe we just saved the cup as well. So I don't actually see it as a giveaway. I see it as and I take it just to put a Team New Zealand's hat on. I see it as a future for the team as well, because I remember Michael Fay said to me once, he said, we'll just get that thing. If we ever win it, that's him, and nothing to do with us. We'll just stick it in the cabinet and stuff it. See them in 30 years. I don't care, and kind of that's, that's the kind of contrary view to it, isn't it? That if you do that, you would still have it in your cabinet in 30 years, but you wouldn't have any team and you wouldn't have any event. If we hadn't done this, possibly, and history will prove this, right or wrong, there may not have been an event soon. It would have been this time, but soon.
And what has Team New Zealand gained?
You could argue that from Team New Zealand's point of view, we just increased our advantage by a cost cap that is something that we actually, about what we'd spend anyway, but makes it harder for the big teams to go on a rating exercise, because they won't be able to.
Will the deed of gift need to be amended to make this or the next cup cycle happen?
That as long as you've got challenger record and a defender, and so long as you've got a protocol, you've got an event. So if you have that agreed beforehand, you've still got an event, and you can make decisions so that you're not hamstrung. But we will now go into a kind of stage look at a potential alteration to the deed. So that will happen, or it will be looked at, going forward. It's not going to happen in 5 minutes, right? That's a couple of years to do that. Ben?
Yeah, no, I agreed. I think it's a really important piece to the, developing this partnership, because like Grant says, you've got the sort of perpetual nature of the mutual consent, but really to belt and braces, we need to get to amend the deed. We've had some really good feedback from New York Yacht Club. They're really supportive of what we're trying to do here, and I think that's really key to this.
How many teams will there be for the next Cup in 2027?
Well, I think it's going to be anywhere between four to 7 teams is the reality,
including the defender. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. And hopefully, of course, we want all 7 teams. That would be amazing. But yeah, we'll know over the next couple of weeks.
We know that one of the massive appeals of winning the Cup is being able to bring it home, and as a Brit, there's no one who wants to bring it home more than you, as you've said, for the last 18 years, and I'm sure that's still your goal. But I just wonder how the ACP works. If and a deal, I guess, hasn't been done for the next one, but does this change your campaign? Because all the time you've been running campaigns, it's been, we want to bring it home, we want to undo the misjustice, it belongs here,
Yeah.
we're bringing it home, but you might be in a position where you can't.
Yeah, but also, the flip side to that is that, having a cup every 2 years, that cycle and the commerciality of the event, I think, in many ways increases the chances. Of course, we'd like to win it and then be able to say, well, look, we've got the best host venue, we've built up all this support for the team, and that's why we were able to bring in this financial support to have the cup in the UK. That's what we'd like to do. I think the history of the cup until now, as we all know, has been the fact that unless you win it, it's very, very difficult, particularly in the UK. I would say at the moment, to be able to get that support to host an event. So yeah, I mean, I get the point, but I also think this is really critical to the longevity of the cup and for the teams. And if you take a team like ours, we're a third generation team now. Okay, we got to the final last time. Well documented, Grant and the Kiwis kicked our ass. Not that it still doesn't hurt, but being able to be a founding partner in this cycle where now we're racing every other year, then I think the opportunities are totally, it's letting the cork out the bottle analogy that, for us as a team, it creates so many more opportunities. And, the more successful we can be as an organisation moving forward to the cup, then the better chances we've got of actually being able to host the cup in the UK.
Do I take it then from what you've said that there isn't anything in the ACP that says if you win, whoever wins gets first dibs on where they take it, irrespective of what it's been agreed at later on?
No, because your last part of your sentence is the key bit. It will be agreed, hopefully, before the event is finished.
So in short, just how significant is this step for the America's Cup?
I think it's the biggest step change in the history of the cup, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, it's to have a defender, again, credit to Grant and the team, to come forward and create a partnership where you've got neutral governance. Never happened. And like Grant and I have said, we both feel strongly that this is critical to the future success of the cup, rather than it just sort of slowly petering out as this event with great historical relevance but can't really survive in the modern era of commercial sports. So yeah, it's a massive deal, and we're committed to making it work.
So there it is. But what do you think about what looks set to be a highly controversial step for the Cup? Let us know. You didn't hold back last time, so we're looking forward to hearing more.